This is part 2. We're talking about Christian Zionism. Part 1 is on the page. I know that I said part 2 was going to cover how corporate America uses Christian Zionism as a public relations weapon against the New Deal. But before we move on from the 1830s and John Darby's dispensationalism, why is my brain making that mistake? It is dispossessionalism, but that's not a real word. It's dispensationalism. That line about why they were in Baghdad, bringing the printing press to the Ottoman Empire, that's not sitting right with me. What exactly did Britain print and distribute across the Ottoman Empire in the 1800s? A lot, actually. From anti-Islamic polemic tracts in the 1830s to full propaganda newspapers by the time of the First World War. The presence of a British printing press in the Ottoman Empire before World War I kicks off, that deserves further scrutiny. To understand this completely, we have to go back to 1798. So here's what I found so far. The East India Company began trading in Basra, Iraq, in the 17th century using Armenian merchant networks as commercial proxies. 1798 brings an upgrade. The justification for this in the British history book is that France had invaded Egypt and that triggered an alarm. If you watched my video about the Reform Act last week, you might remember that the British government are still blaming the French Revolution on the necessity to reform the democracy. That is the same rhetoric being produced here now in the context of the East India Company and the original intelligence operations in the Middle East. They were not sent there because Napoleon was a threat. If you still believe that, you're gullible as fuck. So this guy, Harford Joan Bridges, was sent to set up the first Central Intelligence Office in Baghdad. His job title was called the Resident, and the Resident held the rank of the East India Company political agent. But this hub had dual purpose, not just intelligence. It was also a commercial representative in the Gulf. And Basra in Iraq sits at the pivot point between three empires, the Ottoman, the Persian, and the British Indian at the time. This is the precursor to the Arab Bureau, and it was set up in 1798. In 1810, the Baghdad Residency merges with the Basra Residency. The combined operation is renamed the Political Agency in Turkish Arabia. This name shift matters a lot. Turkish Arabia is what the British called Iraq. It's at this point, in 1812, the British structurally are ready to end the Ottoman Empire. Claudius Rich served as the political agent in Baghdad from 1808 to 1821. He is remembered in British history books as an archaeologist and a manuscript collector. His private correspondence are still held in the Indian Office collections, and he talks specifically about collecting social histories of knowledge and material culture. That is a direct challenge to the tidy distinctions between these academic scholars and the empire. His archaeological account of Kurdistan was an intelligence product. It provides detailed knowledge of the land, people, roots, and tribal structures. The Baghdad Residency under Rich and his successors produced a detailed knowledge of the land and its people through surveys and exploratory journeys. British Library now holds these manuscript collections. He was from Kilkenny, by the way. Qatar Digital Library also hosts these records, and they describe these residencies as the ground-laying architecture for the World War I seizure of Baghdad. The other founding member of the Plymouth Brethren was Anthony Norris Groves. He had studied at Trinity College Dublin. His missions to the Middle East were financed entirely by private donation. They became known as faith missions, meaning no formal church or state backing was acknowledged. He publishes this book, A Journal of a Resident at Baghdad during the years 1830 and 1831. This is an intelligence product dressed up as a spiritual memoir. This journal is the only significant English language account of Baghdad's social and political conditions during those years. This is propaganda, and his brother-in-law is George Muller. He is a famous British philanthropist that ran orphanages funded by faith. And his other brother-in-law was John Gifford Bellet, another one of the original Dublin Brethren. This is a very close interlocking social circle of men who shared commercial interests. Let's talk about the propaganda. What did they actually produce? They used anti-Islamic polemic as a destabilization mechanism. This is Karl Gottlieb Vander. He was a missionary with the Church Mission Society, the Church of England's principal overseas mission body. He wrote this book, The Balance of Truth, in German in 1829, the same year that Groves arrives in Baghdad. And the British Residency had this book translated into Persian, Arabic, Urdu, and Turkish. The book's central argument compares the origins of Christianity and Islam, contrasting the former's peaceful rise to the latter's violent establishment. It attacked the authenticity of the Quran and argued for the corruption of the Islamic scripture. So when they say they were bringing the printing press to the Ottoman Empire, what they really mean is they were building an enormous infrastructure in 19th century Ottoman Empire, printing millions of Bibles, commissioning thousands of missionaries to go to the Middle East, and building hundreds of schools. The Balance of Truth was the flagship text for this campaign. This material slotted directly into that printing infrastructure. The British now had complete control of press systems, steamboats, postal routes, and these residency intelligence networks. Meanwhile, the Americans, not to be left out of the excitement, set up their own American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions. They also established a printing press in Malta. Both of these operations are Protestant, capitalist printing infrastructures for Arabic language materials in the Middle East. The Americans even create their own typeface, American Arabic. This dramatically accelerates the production of Arabic language texts. The Western intelligence presence in the Middle East is a continuous through line from the East India Company to the Foreign Office. I'll let you pause to read. Every time you hear of conflict in the Middle East being framed as religious fanaticism, that is the religious frame that has been providing operational cover for this Western imperialism since 1798. And you still keep falling for it.